Yins, guys, thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. Today's December 5th. Last week was a whirlwind of everything and then absolutely nothing. A ton of moves trying to get done before the CBA expired, and then the expiration hit, and now we wait. The Pirates were not excluded from making moves. We'll get into Stallings, the guys coming and going, and what we make of all this. But first, I'm Josh. Joining me as always is my brother Jake. Any of those moves stick out to you?
You know what? A couple of them did. I just wanted to jump right in there and say, within the division, St. Louis picking up Steven Matz. 4 years, so we'll have to deal with him for a while. And then the Cubs picking up Stroman. We'll have to deal with him for 3 years.
Yeah.
Kind of sucks, but I mean, it's just, a couple. Clint Frazier and Yan Gomes, two guys that I thought, wondered if the Pirates would look at getting either one of those two. Yan Gomes, not quite as much as Clint Frazier, but, Clint Frazier, there was a lot of talk around him. So we almost traded for him at one point, earlier.
Well, at least that's what everybody likes to say.
Right.
But,
the only other ones that really stuck out, I mean, obviously the two big ones.
Yeah.
With Scherzer and Seager.
Yeah.
Just crazy amounts of money. And I know, there's only $130 million for Scherzer. Yeah, only spread over 3 years.
Yeah. So
That's
much
$43
money.
$43 million a year. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely crazy going up to it. And Cy Young, Robbie Ray.
Mm-hmm.
Scherzer was in the Cy Young race. And then, obviously Javi Baez, another former NL Central guy, goes to Detroit for 6 years, 140, which I think is good for the Tigers. We're probably on different ends of the spectrum with Baez, but
I'm just not a fan. I'm not a fan of Javier Baez. I think he's overrated. Not that he's not good. I know he's good.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's a 6-year, $140 million player.
Yeah. I get it. Here's a couple things I'll say. Detroit's ready to spend, right? So they're starting to turn a corner. He's very good defensively.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I know he's had his fair share of messing up some routine plays, but he does some things that wow you.
Mm-hmm.
He's still going to hit around 30 homers a year. And that may actually get more as he gets older and maybe, hopefully, gets a little bit wiser on, pitch selection. Because we know he swings at everything.
Right.
But, yeah, the strikeouts are there, but you get the homers too, and the average really isn't that bad. He went to the Mets last year and hit if he didn't hit over 300, it was almost 300. While playing with the Mets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know. I just...
Here's the thing about Javi Baez. He loves to win. He's very motivated to win. He'll always have your back if you're his teammate. If he's on your team, there's a lot to like. If he's not on your team, there's probably a lot you don't like. So I get it.
Maybe that's the case.
Maybe that's the case. I don't know if he just continues to play the way he's playing right now. I think it's a great signing. It's not like record. It's not like 30. I mean, it's like $20 million a year, but
yeah,
you know what I mean. 20. What is it? 20. I don't know. I'm not doing the math. It's like $23 million a year.
Yeah, something like that.
That's the number right now, right? That's what Robbie Ray got. That's what Stroman got. So, yeah, I don't know.
The only other one that really even struck out to me at all was the Paxton deal to Boston, just because I thought...
You had mentioned him.
Yeah, I'd mentioned him as I kind of thought we might reach out to somebody like that for a 1-year deal.
Well, maybe, as we get into this, maybe we'll actually talk a little bit about what we thought the Pirates were going to do and contrast that with what is actually going on right now.
Yeah.
And I know that that's a thing. You know what I mean? So let's just start getting into it. We recorded on Sunday, and we had comments about some things, and then Monday, some things changed. We talked about the possibility of Jacob Stallings getting traded, and at first we were like, "That's probably just not going to happen."
Yeah.
And then you said, "Well, if you don't think he's going to be around, why not?" And I don't think that you were actually meaning that it's a good idea.
I mean, I wasn't saying it'd be a good idea, but I said it wouldn't be a bad idea. I mean,
Yeah, you did
you
call that
trade him
out.
now, you're getting the best you can get for him.
So, and ultimately, I think as the conversation went, we said, well, obviously, we don't have anywhere to go. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so we did. I don't know. In my opinion, I thought we didn't think that this was anything that was going to happen. People were calling about him. You're not going to hang up the phone on him. Turns out Miami was persistent. They were talking about Stallings at the trade deadline. Sherrington alluded to that, or I don't know if he's alluded to it. He just said it.
Yeah.
That Miami at the trade deadline wanted Stallings, and they picked up those talks after the season. And I just don't. I mean, certainly it would not have made sense to deal him during the season when you have no plan.
Right.
So that seems to be obvious. But they were still on him, and they were still saying they wanted him. And I started thinking about it. I was like, you got Jorge Alfaro, who I thought was good enough to, to roll with.
Mm-hmm.
They've since then dealt him to the Padres after they got Stallings, but it seemed clear they were looking for a guy like Stallings to handle that pitching staff, which is pretty full of studs.
Yeah, they got a pretty, and they just extended
Alcantara.
Alcantara. Yeah,
Yep.
and he's a stud, man.
And that's a bunch of young arms, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe Stallings will be good for those guys. It'll be interesting to watch. I don't really Stallings is a hard guy to so let me give a little bit of a backstory. And this is maybe a little bit forward looking too. But we're literally like 5 days after. There's no spoiler alerts here, right? We signed
Right.
Roberto Perez, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I was talking to a buddy of mine about Roberto Perez, he's a Cleveland fan. I've talked to him before. I talked to him. We talk baseball all the time, right? And he said, "Well, Perez has caught 3 Cy Young Award winners in Cleveland, and those are those guys wanted to pitch to Perez." And I was like, "Yeah, I get that. Like I think I would have guessed that that's his deal, right? I mean, you had Yan Gomes there. You had Yan Gomes there to hit, and then Roberto Perez came in and caught those guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is Stallings that guy? Everybody talks about how he cares about the pitchers and he likes the pitchers and he does, but like in contrast to Roberto Perez, who's shown that he's good for those pitchers, specifically, hopefully, Stallings, which we feel like has a lot of the same tools. The problem is, Keller wasn't getting any better. Throw into Stallings. Now, does that mean Keller just didn't get better, or does that mean Stallings doesn't really do anything for pitch? No, none of them seem to. But it's hard to compare that to because it's not like they had anybody else to throw to. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So there's no way to tell if Stallings has that or not. I mean, might find out this year.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be throwing to a lot of young arms that look like they could become special.
Mm-hmm.
Marlins, man.
So I guess what you're is he actually going to help those young pitchers out? Is that what you're kind of questioning?
Well,
or
I don't want to say like I don't think he's going to. I just think that the verdict's still out on whether or not he's that kind of a guy.
I got you.
He's never had an opportunity to prove it because of our pitching staff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All we know is we've got some guys with tools who haven't figured it out yet.
Right.
With tools, or yeah, you can say that. With
Sure.
some weapons who haven't
Mm-hmm.
figured it out yet, and that doesn't mean it's Stallings' fault that they haven't.
No.
But
No, I see what.
there's no track record yet, and I
Right.
thought about that after I was talking to him because that's what he was saying. He was saying like, you might be better off with Perez, and I'm like, well, first things first, Kluber was really good before he threw to Perez. And so was
Yeah.
Bieber. And so, you know what I'm saying? Like all these guys they were already good. So it's going to take more than just a catcher. But maybe somebody does turn a corner and then you just hear how they go. If they say like, well, it's because of Perez, then maybe that makes a difference, right?
Right.
I don't think it means we're going to look back and say, boy, Stallings wasn't that good. Like, I just don't think so. I think that what we have on Stallings, we have on Stallings.
Yeah.
For what he was and not about what he could have been.
Yeah.
So let's get into that. Let's get into Jacob Stallings, traded to the Marlins for a pitcher who will immediately be on the Pirates, Zach Thompson, right-handed pitcher. And then two prospects, another pitcher, Kyle Nicholas, and an outfielder, Connor Scott. We mentioned... Go ahead.
I was just, Zach Thompson, he pitched last year. He pitched pretty well, if you ask me. I mean, I looked up his numbers a little bit. Like a 3-something ERA, and I know a lot of new guys don't care about ERAs, but...
I think ERA still counts. I think wins and losses don't.
Yeah.
ERA still matters.
Yeah. But, it looked like he threw well.
Yeah.
His K to walk ratio was good. I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what it was, but it was good.
So debut at like 28, he was DFA'd at one point, just let go by the White Sox. And so it's kind of a weird thing, but I don't know if he matter of fact, I don't even think he was pitching that well in AAA when he got called up. But something clicked at that level. I think he made a couple really good starts, and then he was pretty average after that. Like there was he made a run when he first got called up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then after that, he was pretty average. But if you make a run at the major league level, then you at least have that in your tank. Can you maximize that? I mean, the thing is that the Pirates need pitching.
Mm-hmm.
And if this guy can give us innings and not be terrible. I mean, Trevor Cahill was pretty bad for us last year, but the worst of all the things about Trevor Cahill is that he didn't give us innings.
Right.
Even though, I mean, so how do you give somebody, what do you mean that was the worst? Well, the worst is we kept that. He was hurt for a long time, and when he was pitching, we were taking him out in the third inning because we were getting blasted.
Yeah.
Just, even if you're not winning games, even if you are giving up runs, if you're not giving up 7 runs in 2 innings, you know what I mean? If you end up giving up 4 runs in 5 innings at 2021 status, Pirates, right? A team that's probably going to lose 100 games, I'm letting you throw those 5 innings to save everyone else. Yes, I understand. That means you're giving the other team a 4 spot every time out there, but innings are very important. If you don't and you end up winning 3 extra games because of it, they don't matter.
Right.
3 games will matter when you're competing for the playoffs. If you're under 500 at all, I don't care if you're 1 game under or 10 games under. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
To me, it doesn't matter. Now, if you're 1 game under and you could have been a game over, there might be a little bit there to just say you won more games than you lost. But once you're beyond that, I don't care.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
If you have a
And
team that's 15 games under 500 and the team right beside them is 2 games under 500, to me they both were under 500 and it doesn't matter. But that's me. I think that there's a lot of other things that matter when you're there. And for Pirates fans right now, those other things are the things that matter. And those things are, how did Brian Reynolds bounce back from 2020? That was a positive thing.
yeah.
How will Kevin Newman bounce back from 2020? Offensively, no. Defensively, big strides.
Mm-hmm.
How will Mitch Keller develop? He didn't. So that was a negative. You know what I'm saying? Like, but those are the things that we care about. Not when you were going into a season saying, will we or will we not lose 100 games? I'm sorry. Unless they win a bunch and then it becomes important, it's not important.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was a little bit off here. I want to stay on this. Zach Thompson will give us innings, whether good or bad. If they end up being good, then maybe he turns into something. If they're not good, then maybe that's just another attempt. And then hopefully Kyle Nicholas, who has a couple good pitches, can, throw strikes. I think is his only problem right now is that he needs to throw more strikes. His accuracy's off or something.
Yeah.
And then Connor Scott, the outfielder, is another speedy outfielder drafted right around the same time as Travis Swaggerty. And basically he's had like a similar... Actually, he's not even as advanced at this point as Swaggerty is, as far as like he'll start off in Double-A.
Yeah, I think our main two guys were I think the number one guy we wanted was somebody to pitch in the major leagues. We need pitchers at the major league level. So the Zach Thompson was the big spot in this trade. Then you never know. You got a pitcher that you can develop, and
Maybe,
then
maybe. I see what you're saying. Go ahead and say about Connor Scott, though, before I...
Connor Scott is to me is just a throw in that fast guy. You never know.
So I would think, because Nicholas and Connor Scott were actually on the... They were actually on the top 30 for the Marlins. Right? So those are the two players that I felt like maybe were more of the idea of it, right? I'm trying to think here. I thought I had it written down. I don't. Either way, they were like numbers 16 and number 23 or something like that in the prospects, right?
Yeah,
So,
and I think they're good prospects. And obviously, we're always trying to add prospects to depth to our organization.
yeah.
But I think it was important that we find somebody to throw innings at the major league level.
Yeah, this comes back to what we said last week. I have a hard time with the Stallings trade because I have a hard time with what you're going to get back for him.
Yeah.
I said this last week, you're never going to get a good enough return for a guy like Stallings to make a difference as much as you will keeping a guy like Stallings who could have been cost effective throughout his time as a starter and then transition into a backup like we said we thought he might do.
Yeah.
And then, especially if it ends up being Henry Davis, an offensive guy, Stallings catches the ace. You know what I mean? Maybe a couple different pitchers and you work things out that way. Maybe the CBA comes with a DH and you end up, with if Henry Davis is, hitting the way that we think he might, then maybe he's DHing a couple nights or a couple pitchers and Stallings gets into the lineup to hit or to catch. And you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I look at the player value and the return value. And the player value is he's the catcher right now. And he's the only one on our roster.
Right.
He's the catcher for the next few years to bridge the gap until you get... I mean, I think you could legitimately start winning more games than you're losing before Henry Davis even shows up.
I'm gonna say that I don't, because I seriously, honestly think Henry Davis is our starting catcher in 2023.
Well, I'm going to have to see 2022 before I would agree to that. But even if not, I think 2023, I mean, well, we'll get into that. We'll get into years a little bit later.
I just have a feeling that I think Davis is going to be on the fast track to get here.
Okay. So
I mean,
the
obviously it's
value,
nothing I've seen
right.
exactly
So
yet,
the
but
player value of keeping him is we said he'll bridge the gap and a backup catcher down the road. And the other thing is like I've heard, especially early in the week, because there was a lot of people upset about this. Jacob Stallings is a great guy.
mm-hmm.
So easy to root for. All of those things he has. And I think sometimes we look at those guys because we're fans of them and maybe talk them up a little bit. And that's hard to do with a guy who just won a Gold Glove and had what I think is probably the best offensive year that he'll ever have.
Yeah.
But I've heard a lot of people kind of compare Stallings in weird ways, including comparing him to somebody like Yadier Molina. And I'm like, that's a little far-fetched. Molina,
Yeah.
to me, is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
And there's enough offense there, even though he's had an interesting career offensively. Sure, he's not the best. But he's had some very good offensive seasons, putting together some numbers that I just don't see Jacob Stallings ever getting to.
Oh, no. Jacob Stallings got started really late, too.
Very late. Yadi Molina made it to the majors at 21 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Still going for one more year. He's not that good.
No.
I like Stallings. He's a great defender, and he had some big moments offensively last year.
Mm-hmm.
But he out-hit himself last year a little bit. I think he's good, and I think that he's a guy that I want on my team, right? You're not always, but to me, you're not always going to get a Yachty or Molina. I think that's the next, it's up there.
Yeah.
I'm high on Molina, maybe you might say, but I think that, to me, that's not where we're at. That's not what we're looking at.
No. I agree with most of what you said. I think that I think Stallings out hit what he's done, what he's shown. I don't think that there's any reason he can't repeat what he just did offensively.
I think if you see any more upside from Jacob Stallings, it's a better batting average. Like, I think he can hit for a better average. He's hit for a better average in the minors before. You know what I mean? I think the power is...
What did he hit? What did he hit? 8 home runs?
I think he hit 8 home runs.
I don't see why he can't hit 8 again.
I told you earlier I never saw him hitting more than 5. So
Right.
In the season, I told you that. Even though he'd hit 6 in 2019 when the balls were juiced. Right? And he ended up with 8 this year, which now we find out that some of them are juiced still, but then some of them weren't. That they were actually handing out 2 different kinds of balls this year.
I didn't hear about that.
You didn't hear this?
No.
Apparently, there's 2 different balls because Rawlings' production got shut down, and they couldn't produce balls at the rate that MLB needed. So they said, hey, guys, you're going to have to also throw some of the old balls in.
Oh, wait. But here's an idea. Or we could just use the same ball for more than 2 pitches.
Right?
I'm sorry.
Well,
this might be a little side tangent, but it drives me nuts. Hey, catchers, please, if the ball hits the dirt, throw the ball back to me. I can use that.
Well, that's the reason they don't.
But that should be a legal way to get extra grip on the ball. I wouldn't need spider tack if you'd leave a ball in there for a couple hitters even.
Yeah. Well, either way, it turns out, no, that's good. It turns out that even afterwards, even after production kicked back up, they were producing both balls. So they were still using both of them. And then there's like the question, I wonder if there'll be more that's going to come out of this, because there was also the question of that there were certain balls being put into play at certain times. Imagine those teams with high offensive production were like, you guys can keep using the old ball. This is exciting. And teams with those aces are using the new ball. Now, granted, whatever it was, they were both acceptable. They were both within the realm of what's considered acceptable. But I don't want to go down this path too much. The point is, we may hear more about this.
Yeah.
So, we talked about the value of Stallings. How about the value of the return? You get 2 top 30 prospects who are a little bit older than I thought you would get. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I thought that you'd be getting younger. I think they're both like 22 or 22 and 23. Are they even that old? Is one 23? Now I'm stuck, because I thought that was the case. But we're going to look it up real quick here just so I can make sure. But you know about Zach Thompson. You've already gone into him. So you've already said that.
Serviceable.
Yeah. So they're both 22 years old. February, Kyle Nicholas. So Kyle Nicholas will be 23. Connor Scott will be 22. So that's what I thought. So Kyle Nicholas, being the fact that he's going into his age 23 season, and the highest he's pitched is AA. And he's a college guy, so that makes sense. But then the same thing for Connor Scott. He's not even played in AA yet. And he's going into his age 22 season.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's a college guy. No, he's a high school guy. So he's making his way there. It seems like he's toolsy, fast, doesn't seem to have much power, but he's like has the potential to be a legit like play center field.
Yeah.
They're development projects. Maybe we can make them into something. But they are what they are.
Yeah. And if Sherrington's developmental team is as good as
what we
all hope.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing. But you never know what turn a player is going to make at some point in his career.
Right.
If Kyle Nicholas learns to hit the strike zone and could turn into something, even if it's like a really good back-end bullpen guy, if he can help win games, then you've succeeded in some way. He doesn't have to light the world on fire to be a legitimate trade. Every trade's a gamble when you're talking prospects. So you don't even have to have like a lot of success in order to say it was worth the shot.
Right.
If you come out of this and say, well, we dealt him when his stock was high. We knew what this was, but we decided to take the gamble on these players, and either they worked out or they didn't.
Yeah.
Still could have been worth it. I like to think that I would have kept Stallings around to be a backup and just have a good guy around who's good for the clubhouse rather than take a gamble on these guys. I understand Zach Thompson gives you pitching now. Kyle Nicholas gives you an opportunity to have pitching later. We know that the Pirates' pitching is bad, so we know that acquiring arms is always a good thing because you never know who's going to end up good. You just don't. So I get all that. Like, I understand. Basically, I understand the trade. I wouldn't have done it. I think the value of having Stallings around is better. Now, maybe Zach Thompson's a super awesome guy, and he's going to be a great guy to pal around with, and he's going to, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
maybe he
Yeah.
ends up being a good guy, and we like him too right before he goes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not about that. I just thought that Stallings would have been better fit sticking around. With that said, actually, do you have anything else on those guys?
No, not really.
So where are you at with the return? Are you saying one for one? We don't know
No.
yet. Like, what do you need to see
No,
from them?
just you pretty much touched on most of it. My opinion with this, as far as trading Stallings, is I don't even know if that was necessarily their plan.
Right.
But the Marlins kept coming. The Marlins kept coming. The Marlins kept coming. You're like, you know what? If I can get something out of him, and I already know Perez, I have Perez.
It's a
Thought
good point.
no, but I
Yeah.
had the Perez is an option
If they were already in talks
because
with him.
Sherrington already had talks. He
Yeah.
wasn't going to deal Stallings knowing that he didn't have anybody on his 40-man roster. So
Well, I don't know that, but you would think that. You're right.
you would think, but so I don't know. I agree with the trade. I agree with your thoughts on it. I do think Stallings was a better fit, but you know what? If there's a team out there that's going to offer me some prospects and an arm right now,
How
it's kind
good
of
do
hard to
they have
pass
to
up.
be, though?
They don't have to be that good. Our pitching was that bad.
Yeah.
If you
These
have a
guys
guy
don't
who's
even have to
pitched,
work out. These guys don't even have to work out, and you say, like, I get it. We're fine.
yeah,
To anybody out there saying, and I know this is a very common thing, criticism, that's the word I'm looking for. A very common criticism is that we'll trade anyone who becomes good. And what you mean by that is expensive. That was not the case here. He was not going to make that much money.
no,
I think it was $3 million. It was probably due to make. And we went out to segue into the next thing. We signed Roberto Perez for $5 million. Also, that's the same amount of money. I know it's not, but I say this kind of thing all the time where I say 10 wins under 500 is the same as 15 wins. It's not, but it's the same.
yeah,
It's the same value. Walk into a store, something costs $1 or it costs $1.50. If you want that thing, the $1.50 is not gonna be like, yeah, but I'm not gonna buy it for $1.50. You're gonna buy it. If you go in to get a
yeah,
monster and it's 2 for $4 or it's not 2 for $4, that just tells you whether you're gonna buy one or two. You're still gonna spend the money if it's $2.50 for one of them. You went in
yeah,
there for a monster.
yeah,
So the idea is that $3 million and $5 million to a Major League Baseball team is still very affordable, very cheap.
mm-hmm.
The money is coming in. Yes, $3 million sounds awesome for me and you. But I don't know what company you work for. They don't make the same amount. The company that I work for is not making the same amount of money that that MLB is.
Oh, heavens no.
So the money's there. You can't just look at it and say, well, $3 million should be fine for anyone. It all depends on what your industry makes. If your industry makes more money, then the product is worth more. The players of the product, they're worth more money.
Yeah.
So 3 to 5 million, not very much money. Very
No.
little, very little money in the grand scheme of things. So signing Roberto Perez for $5 million is not like a whoa, they spent money. No, they didn't. They just literally just signed a matter of fact, probably a little bit less. I mean, he's made more than that in his career, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, probably.
You know me. You know I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, he may not have.
Maybe, but
He hasn't been around that long.
well, but he's got enough time. Trying to think of like he's a free agent.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
But he's also been hurt a lot, so he probably didn't earn a ton in arbitration.
I'm looking at his
But he did
service
have the
time.
1 year in 2019. He had
He's
like
got
25
he's
homers.
got 7 years of service time. Now I know service time still counts when you're hurt. Yeah, he made 500,000 more than that last year with Cleveland. And he's making 450,000 this year from Cleveland for buying him out of his contract. Which means he signed a contract with them, like not just a arbitration.
Yeah.
And then they bought him out of his option year. So, yeah, no, you're right. But you're talking about a guy who's made $15 million in his career.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's got 2 gold gloves. So he's, and that's 19 and 20. That's not like, oh, yeah, but he won those 5 years. No, like
Recently.
he was hurt last year. Other than that, the last 2 years he played before that, he won gold gloves. And you can look at it and say, like, well, but he only played 73 games and 61 games and 70 games. Those were all as backups. He was the backup catcher. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he was the preferred guy to pitch to. Those are good qualities when you're looking to replace somebody like Jacob Stallings.
Absolutely.
He hit 24 home runs in 2019 in the juice ball year. In comparison, Jacob Stallings hit 6. I say that to say, well, that was the juice ball year, and his most other than that has been 8.
Yeah, and limited playing time.
And limited
as the backup catcher.
As the backup, too. Well, because only 5 in 2020 when he was a starter, and last year injuries, but he still hit 7 home runs.
Yeah, but 5 in 2020, that's a 60-game season.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Yeah.
His 162-game average in home runs is 18. Now, that doesn't mean that's what he's going to hit in a year because nobody plays 162 games.
Right.
But his 162-game averages. So, I mean, if we get 15 home runs out of him.
Yeah. It's
or if he's healthy, you might get more than that.
Yeah.
There's some pop there. His average is probably not going to be as good as Stallings. But really, when you're making the argument between hitting 210 with some power or hitting 250 with no power or little power, you're pretty much getting the same thing. Again.
Yeah, it evens out.
You'd have to look at the on-base. I would guess that the on-base for Stallings is better. But if you remember early in the season, Stallings wasn't walking at all because they were like, oh, I'm going to throw him a fastball. I'm not walking Jacob Stallings.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't if I was pitching to him.
Right.
Especially like with a pitcher hitting behind him saying like, I could get an out this inning and next inning. But he spent a lot of the year hitting up in the lineup because our lineup ended up being so bad.
Yeah.
But I think you're getting a very similar player.
Yeah.
I don't think Stallings has won his last gold glove. At least I don't think that Stallings will be... I don't think that this is the last time he'll be in the conversation. He'll be in the conversation.
Yeah.
As long as he's a starter. Absolutely. So...
But I wouldn't mind him not getting the gold glove next year if Roberto Perez gets it. So.
Yeah, 100%. I just disappear and then reappear. Just fixing my shoe there. Yeah. I think we got a lot of the same player. I'm pleased with it.
I think we got a lot of the same player with a little more upside on hitting the ball over the fence, instant offense.
Okay. Yeah, and you could argue that one way or the other. And you'd probably have good grounds to argue. You know what I mean? You'd have a good case either way. So it still stings. It still isn't fun. We liked Stallings. He's a good guy. Yep. And that usually doesn't matter to a lot of people, but I think it does to Pirates fans. I think we gravitate towards those guys.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I just think that ultimately, even though I think personally that it would have been a good idea to keep Stallings, I mean, I guess I'm sitting here saying, like, we might have had them both. Imagine just going into a year with Stallings and Perez. Who cares?
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? Now you got, I mean, it's basically what you went. It's still going to be an upgrade from Michael Perez last year.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Who was also a defensive guy who was a part of all of those not passed balls. And we all like to say, like, oh, he had 2 passed balls in the same game. We went all year without it, and then Michael Perez ruined it. No, but Michael Perez was part of going all year without it.
Yeah.
He earned it too. I know not as many innings as Stallings, but he was part of it. But anyway.
Sure.
All right, so let's move on. We did not get to, I think, had we gotten to react to the Jacob Stallings trade, I think had we gotten to react to it on Tuesday, I think we would have probably had a lot different of a feel. Right?
Maybe.
I was a little bit upset. You know what I'm saying? I did. Because once you see the return, you're like, yeah, I'm excited for, like, you got 3 players for 1, but, like, I just don't know. But I think the longer you sit and you pay attention, the Roberto Perez signing, I think, helped a lot.
Oh, yeah. It softened it.
But also, like, starting to, like, the further you get away from it, the more you sit and think, what do these people need to be to make it worth it? And I think ultimately, I don't care. It's worth the gamble. Anybody who says that it's absolutely not worth the gamble, then this is interesting because I'm making an argument. I don't ever gamble. I've never bought a lottery ticket. But only somebody else with that track record of gambling could make an argument that it's not worth the gamble. If you've ever bought a lottery ticket, then you can, why? Why did you buy it? You got something out of the gamble, right?
Yeah.
If you've ever done anything at a casino, you got something out of that. You gave money away only for a chance. That's it. No guarantee that anything was ever going to come back to you. You just were like saying, I'm okay donating this to this casino.
Oh, absolutely.
And if you say, I'm okay donating this to the casino, then then you could see that you'd be okay donating Jacob Stallings to the Miami Marlins for the chance that you get 10-1 out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just a chance. And the fact that you have 3 people means that your chances are better.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, there was a lot of other things. Ben Gamel was signed to a 1-year deal. All that means is that he avoids arbitration. He was still going to be with the team.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Newman signed a 1-year deal. Same thing. He would have went to arbitration. He signs a 1-year deal. Both of them $1.8, $1.9 million respectively. And then the releases. Release Cody Ponce, which we were like, why don't we? Sayonara. He's going to Japan. Or at least he's pursuing an opportunity in Japan.
Yeah.
Chad Kuhl was non-tendered, becomes a free agent. Chad Kuhl's gone. Chad Kuhl. Stephen Brault, DFA'd. He would have went to arbitration. So, I mean, Stephen Brault would have been a non-tender candidate at this point.
Yeah.
He would have been non-tendered as well. Except the reason that he was DFA'd when he was is to make room for Jose Quintana, who we talked about them signing. And then Colin Moran, who would also have been a non-tender, apparently, was DFA'd to make room for Yoshi. I mean, just, we're talking 3. Let's just say Chad Kuhl, Stephen Brault, Colin Moran. That's like 3 guys that we're like, oh, we're clearing house now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but remember the fact that we lost 100 games.
Yeah.
You don't want the same team on the field. And so I know
Right.
there's a lot of argument about, well, now we're definitely going to lose 100 games again, except we don't know who's going to replace those players. Now, obviously, Stephen Brault didn't really affect all that much last year.
And he was
And what he
rough when he
did,
did
it was,
pitch.
yeah. And fair enough. He could still turn it around. And, I mean, he was still injured and whatnot.
Yeah.
But you just don't know what you're going to get from these other guys. So that's why, like, you could ask me, like, well, now what do you think with the team? Well, I have no idea. I have no clue.
Yeah.
Because as of right now, Colin Moran would have been a guy I would have been looking at saying, well, if Colin's here, he's in the mix. Brault is going to get some rotation time. I'd like to see maybe Chad Kuhl in the bullpen. Chad Kuhl is very clear about wanting to start.
Mm-hmm.
And so from the sounds of it, with what I heard from Sherrington, not what I heard from Sherrington, what the reports are. I don't know if that was part of his like interview or if it was in an article where somebody was talking to him. Either way, basically, he said that we wanted to move Chad Kuhl to the bullpen. Chad Kuhl really wanted to start. So I think at this moment we were saying we're not going to offer you a deal so that you can go pursue a starting job somewhere else. We don't think we can put you in the starting rotation on this team, which also sounds really funny that there's not a spot on this team and you think there might be a spot on another team.
Maybe
You know what
Arizona.
I mean?
There were some teams that were worse, but no, I totally get that.
Yeah.
That
There
was
were
our
teams
biggest
that were
downfall.
worse wins and losses, but were they really worse starting pitching?
Right.
I don't know. I'm not saying
I
they
doubt
were.
it.
But the idea is that like you're going to be limited to the number of teams you can go to if that's your situation.
He's going to sign a minor league deal.
He's going to sign a minor league deal.
He's going to have to.
He's going to get an opportunity to.
Which he could technically do it during this lockout.
Yeah.
You're allowed to make minor league.
Yeah, I wonder. I wonder
transactions.
when you're off. When you're out of the union, though. You know what I mean? If you're still in the union, if you're still in the Players Association.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Are you allowed to really do anything? So I don't know. I don't know that.
Yeah.
But either way, the team, which it's fair enough. We all said, Newman, Tucker, which one of these guys are you going to get rid of? You know what I mean? Newman's still there. Obviously, Tucker's still there. So, I don't. The team's going to look different, but you kind of want the team to look different.
Yeah.
The only thing that I don't like is I thought that Stallings was a guy that you could have had there and said, we could make changes elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'd even say the same about Colin Moran. For my money, I'd rather have a healthy Colin Moran than Yoshi at first. But
until Yoshi comes out and proves you wrong.
Till Yoshi comes out and proves me wrong. But then at the same time, how many times did we give Colin Moran a chance?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was talking to
but
lady.
It's the idea that first base could have been better with neither one of them.
Yeah. I was talking to a lady I bowl with, and she was like, "Oh, I feel like we're just getting rid of everybody." And I'm like, "But what did Moran? What did some of these guys really give us?
Yeah,
they gave us 100 losses. So what are we holding on to? You're not holding on to that now. Granted, you do see some, but Colin Moran, Chad Kuhl, Stephen Brault, these aren't the guys that when we envision our good Pirates teams, they're not involved.
Stephen Brault, though, I felt like Chad Kuhl, I'm fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
I was done with him. And I hope that a change of scenery, maybe he figures something out. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to happen here. But Stephen Brawl, I just feel like, I don't know, if he's healthy, he's still a decent pitcher. And when I look at our rotation, though, I feel like Brawl could have been at least giving us innings.
Brault could have given us innings the way Zach Duke gave us innings.
Wait, no, you can't say that. Zach Duke had some good years.
Zach Duke had some good years, and I think Stephen Brault could have some good years.
I got you.
Stephen Brault had a good year in the shortened season. But ultimately, he's a bullpen arm. He's going to be a lefty out of the bullpen. And when that change happened for Zach Duke, he stretched his major league career out by 6-7 years.
Yeah.
I just, I've always thought he was a good singer. I never thought he was that great a pitcher. I'm just being honest. I never was real high. I thought he'd be a good guy to throw an inning.
Okay.
But
so
I've never been high on him as a starter.
Okay, so it's a little different. We went into this offseason saying that we thought that they would do things to increase the... Now, we had down years. We had bad pitching. We had a couple runs that were really, really bad. If you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Every time, what was it? What did we say? Every time we had a walk-off win, we lost 10 games afterwards. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those kind of things aren't normal. I'm not saying the Pirates were a good baseball team that ran into bad luck, but I am saying they're only a little less bad luck away from not losing 100 games.
Absolutely.
So, once again, it doesn't matter. That's the other thing is somebody's like, oh, you're just trying to make excuse. I don't care if they win 95 or if they lose 95 or lose 105. To me, that's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're not good. I don't care.
I think I agree with you on that point, but I do think that 100.
I understand
just
that.
getting to that triple digits is different than even
I understand
98.
that. And that's just thinking that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You lose 98 or 99 games, you basically are a 100-loss team, and you didn't provide anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the idea is that if you feel like you're a 97-loss team, realistically, but you lost 101, matter of fact, because I can, I'm going to go to the Pittsburgh Pirates page on Baseball Reference here, because they give a record on here, and I'm trying to think of what it's called. It's called the Pythagorean win-loss record. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it's based off of your runs versus your runs allowed. Now, that's a pretty simple thing to say. And that Pythagorean win-loss record.
It's like the Pythagorean theory.
Right. 58 and 104. And we ended up 61 and 101. So according to that, we actually may have outdone ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I'm saying. We outdone ourselves because, now, and this is the way I look at it. If you're better than what that win-loss record says, like if you finish actually ahead of that, and I'm not going to say this is guarantee, but from what I've seen, I always think that tells a little bit about who you are. If you win more games than the Pythagorean win-loss record says that you should have, then I think that is actually a better thing for you because it shows that you find ways to win games that you're in.
Yeah.
This is only based off of runs, which we didn't score very many, and runs allowed, which we gave up a lot. In those games that we were close, we found a way to win them.
Yeah.
So I think we know that we didn't score enough runs. I think if you find a way to score more runs, you can increase the wins pretty easily by 10 games. Make a move or two to add to the offense. Obviously, they're going to be adding to pitching and removing guys from pitching and doing all they can to make the pitching better.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, I think that we all kind of think, well, we probably would have scored more runs if Ke'Bryan Hayes had a full season. And when he was here, he wasn't trying to always come back from missing all that time.
Right.
If Colin Moran would have had a full season
And healthy.
and healthy and had his
He
legs
battled
under
a
him,
lot. Yeah.
if we would have never put Kai Tom in the lineup, just think about this. Just go back to before 2021 started and say, I'm going to tell the future and not add Kai Tom. I think we would have had a better year by 1 or 2 games.
And never let Yoshi play the outfield.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that some
runs. It certainly did. And so what that does is that costs you that. But like if you give up 14 runs in a game that you only score 1, then that Pythagorean win-loss record is going to look worse than what actually happened. If you win a series 2-1, 2-1, and then lose 16-0, it looks like you went 0-3, but you were 2-1. So that's what tells me, like, that's why that is there to tell you, like, where you are. And we're not in a good place as far as that kind of stuff goes, right? But I think we're a better team than that. Now, granted, I'm still saying, it's not like I'm trying to say that this is a really good team and we got the shaft. Like, no. This was a bad team. We need to make changes to do those things. We need to score more runs. We thought going into the year that our offense was better than dead last. We thought the pitching was going to be the thing that made us lose a bunch of games.
Mm-hmm.
It did. But our offense wasn't good either.
No.
We're not scoring enough runs. We're not striking out as much as a lot of teams. But it's not equaling runs because, well, we also, I think we hit into 10 gazillion double plays. But I don't really know that. It just felt like every time we got something going, there was a double play or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But either way, where are we going? Is this going to be another 100-loss year? And does it seem like there's absolutely no urgency to put wins on the field at PNC Park?
I don't necessarily feel going to the second half that I definitely don't think that's really the case. I don't think that we're going to be heading for another 100-loss season.
But based on what?
But what? If Jose Quintana doesn't fix his mechanical issues that he's been talking about, if he doesn't get back on track, who's to say he's going to be any better than Tyler Anderson or Cahill?
It's interesting that you put those two together.
Well, I just didn't think much of neither one of them did much of anything.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Tyler
Anderson did enough to get us. Yeah. A lot of people would say we just need to sign Tyler Anderson again. I know.
Yeah.
I'm there too. He did have some good games. I just don't see how.
Yeah.
So, whatever. I think we fooled Seattle. I think that the Pirates had a very good defense last year, and he reaped the benefits of it. Look at his numbers when he left Pittsburgh and went to a defense that wasn't as good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I just, if Yoshi, so basically if Quintana doesn't figure out his issues versus he does, then, it's obviously a big difference. If Yoshi can pick up where he left off with the Pirates and carry that into next year, maybe he had figured something out. You're going to get more offensive production from first base than you had with Moran.
mm-hmm.
But then again, his track record in the MLB doesn't
look
good.
Let me ask you this. If those two You're only talking about 2 guys. Let's throw Perez into the mix too. Defense is going to be solid.
And
That's
Zach
fine.
Thompson. That's
Okay.
a major league arm.
Yeah, let's do
Pitched
this.
to a 3.30 ERA.
So let's do this. Okay, but let's do this. Take Zach Thompson at that versus what even his minor league numbers from last year and the fact that he was DFA'd and something doesn't click.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get him into the middle of that. So let's put him at a 4.50 ERA next year.
Okay.
Let's take Roberto Perez. I'm not even worried about the defense. It's going to be fine. Let's put him at 15 homers, but only hits at 215. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, just for those of you, because I mean, I know I just say hits at 215. His on base is pretty on par with that. He's around 300. It's not great. So let's say on base is around 300. And then let's do Quintana, find somewhere in the middle of what we've seen. Let's put him at a 420, 430. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But actually, like, able to start games and get through 4 to 5, 6 innings if he has a couple good games. But so basically saying he pitches. He's not just going out there and starting, pitching 3 innings and having to get yanked. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He's capable. And let's do Yoshi is halfway between what we've seen and what we saw in that short stint. So let's say he gives you 16 home runs and hits 240 on base at 320. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How's that going to... So I'm just saying, get us halfway there. What are you seeing? I mean, you still have Reynolds. If Gamble can repeat that, is going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's not that this is great, but at least it gives us a full season of Gamble's better than what we had before him. If either Allen or Alford can figure out enough to be better than the other one of those two, what do you see here that tells me, and then, okay, so you get a full season of Key Brian Hayes. Is that enough to be better than what that team was last year? Or are you really looking at a lot of the same thing going into the season?
I think you're looking at a lot of the same thing, but I just don't think you're going to... I think the pitching is going to be better enough to not lose 100 games.
Okay.
And I think we're going to hit the ball over the fence.
But the prop...
A little bit more time, few more times that'll prevent us from losing those 100 games.
But are we going to increase our wins by 10 wins? Are we going to be better?
Are we done?
Maybe. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. So
here's the last. So we can leave that a question. We don't have to have an answer. We can leave that a question.
I don't think he'd be done if this was a regular off season with no CBA interruption. I don't think he'd be done.
Okay, so let's say he is though, and let's say this is the team this is the team. Well, obviously that would be figured out in spring training. Michael Perez is still there. We've got other guys, the other signing. So if we don't increase our wins next year, if we don't show that there is like we talked about going out and getting someone who actually would like be in the middle of your lineup and play right field.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody like Andrew McCutchen, somebody like Jock Peterson, somebody like, who was the other guy that we said, who cares? Pay this guy $15 million to come and play for a year and trade him halfway through. You know what I'm saying? Like any of those guys who were slated for that sort of thing. A guy who, not just a guy who's proven it. A guy who will be valuable in July. Not a guy who we think can play next year for us, but a guy who will be valuable in July to get a return for them.
Yeah.
To bring in a guy just to say, prove yourself and we'll trade you to a team that you have a chance to go straight to the playoffs.
Yeah.
That has to be enticing for an MLB player.
Yeah, it has to.
If I'm only getting a 1-year deal Why wouldn't I want to go to a team who I have a clear starting job
Mm-hmm.
and I can work my way to be dealt? If I'm trying to go to the postseason, I'd rather not have to say, I really have faith in this team. Instead of that, I'd say, I don't have faith in this team, and I'll get traded to a team who is headed to the postseason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that sounds, if I'm getting the same money, why not?
Yeah. What's it matter?
I mean, obviously you'd like to win all year, but in the end is when it really matters the most. And if you end up
Mm-hmm.
signing with the Twins in 2021 thinking they're headed for a division lead and they end up in the very bottom of the division, granted you probably got traded then too, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But if they're just close, not out of it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, does that change 2024, 2025? If we don't improve our wins next year, does it change? Is there some sort of culture that has to be created of winning more games in order for Brian Hayes and Brian Reynolds, for instance, if those are the only two that we think are going to be there? Does it help them to not lose more than 90 games? Or more than, let's say, more than 95?
I mean, I'm not sure I'm following you, honestly.
I want to get to 70 wins. I think it's important to get to 70 wins
Next year.
next year. Because
Yeah.
in my opinion, I said that shows the progression.
So you're saying does it hurt the progression of the guys we think that are going to be there if we don't get
I
there?
would have told you at the beginning of before we threw a pitch in 2021 spring training, that we would have around 500 or better than 500, still not a playoff team, but better than 500 in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
And that was before Henry Davis was drafted.
Yeah.
Knowing that we were going to get a draft pick and it was going to be, if not somebody who was going to be impact. I mean, it was all about Kumar Rocker and Jack Leiter.
Right.
And it ended up being what it was. And then we actually thought they did really good in the draft, so that should speed things up. But the question is, does it change? Does it change now? Are we now thinking that we're not a good team in 2024, that it's not going to be until 2025? I know it's only 1 year, but that seems like it's a big deal. Because
I mean,
now if you think it's 2025, then I don't know that Brian Reynolds is a part of it. And I would maybe hold off on a Brian Reynolds extension.
yeah, I don't think anything's changed in that aspect because we haven't really changed our minor leagues.
Well, but the
And
other
our
thing
minor
too,
leagues is what we're saying is the reason we're going to be good is because what we have down there.
but with the basis of Brian Hayes and Brian Reynolds being the guys.
Mm-hmm.
And then everyone else in our minor leagues is supposed to support those two guys. But if it lingers,
Oh, no. I don't agree with that. I think some of our guys are down.
some of them, but you tell me Brian Reynolds isn't the guy?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Okay, because I'm pretty convinced at this point he's the guy.
But you can't have two guys. You got to have three or four.
I see what you're saying.
So I think Key Brian, Reynolds, and then I'm going to say like Nick Gonzalez, and then maybe O'Neal Cruz. Like maybe those are our four guys.
Yeah, or Henry Davis, or
Yeah.
I
Like
get you. I don't know. I don't know if it changes.
My timeline hasn't changed.
But here's the thing. Those were also our timelines. What I'm saying is, do we have an idea, or do we still have no clue what Sherrington's timeline is?
I still think
he may not have had this in his plan. Might have been 2025 the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are saying 2023, 2024. He might be a year later than that.
Like I'm saying 2025 would be like playoff years.
Before this, I was saying we'd be hoping to sneak into a wild card in 24.
I mean, we'll see what the CBA comes out with, but some of the things that are being brought up in the CBA we might be there in 24.
I don't think you're going to see anything like that.
You don't think they're going to get the 14-team
Well,
playoff?
no, I hope not.
I think that's a bit much. I mean, we're at 10 right now.
I don't like a bye. Like, I don't like a team having a bye. I don't
I
think a
don't
team
either.
would want that.
No.
Unless you were like hurting for injuries and you wanted to skip one. But other than that, like your timing, you can't. Baseball is a sport
Yeah.
that has to be played every day.
Yep.
That's why we say these things about backups. If you don't have consistent at bats, I throw your stats.
You're talking about if you have a bye, a week in baseball is
Well, it's a
that's a
3-game
long
series.
time.
It'll be a 3-game series, and the only way they could do it is 3 straight days, and it's in the same city. You can't be mixed. You can't be. Whoever earns home field advantage earns it for all 3 games.
Yeah.
But then now you're saying we're opening up more playoff teams. But you're saying so 14 teams, so that's 7 a league. That means you got 3 teams who make the playoffs who have a chance of not seeing a home game in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
And I was listening to him talk about it on MLB Network. You're talking about 90, 88 to 90 wins right now is where you're aiming for to get into the playoffs. I mean, are you shooting for 500 now to be able to get into the playoffs? If
Well,
there's 14
if you
teams?
are, then let's take this 162 game season and change it to a 145 game season or something. We play 162 games. If you can't figure out who the best 4 teams are, 5 teams are, why have a 162 game season?
Yeah.
Shorten it. What did it used to be? I mean, it was 152, but before that, it was 140 something. Just go back to that.
I think it was 147.
And they're not going to do that because now all of a sudden your records are off.
They're not going to take games away from the regular season.
Then you can't add any more playoffs. Sorry. Can't happen. Figure out other ways. That's not going to help anything. The players aren't going to go for that.
I think you could get it to 12. Do away with the 1-game wild card. You'd have 6 on each side. 3. See, that wouldn't even work. Couldn't do that. Because you're going to have 3 winners.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no, you can't do it.
Didn't think that through before I said it. But that's all right.
Expansion.
Error is human.
Expansion. And they're not going to do that. If you add another team to each league, now you don't have to do a bye. And you can add half the league makes the playoffs. Yeah, don't do it.
I just think that's just a lot of
Don't
teams.
do it.
Like the NHL does that, and it's insane. It's like half the league.
Yeah. It isn't worth it. It should be hard to get there.
Yep.
There's things, there's things that baseball purists say. Right? I was watching Ken Burns baseball the other day, and the guy comes on there and he says, baseball's different. There's no clock. Nothing telling you that it's almost over. If you hit forever, you live forever, and the game never ends. And it's like, yeah, dude, that's awesome. And now it's like, wow, pitch clock. So what happens? Eventually, do we just run out of time? If a team doesn't throw a pitch or the hitter doesn't, I mean, obviously, I get that, but like, what happens? Is there a time now?
Right. I don't know.
I think that that's another discussion. CBA is another discussion because we are well over our time.
Yeah.
And I don't even know enough about it. The idea is that I would say that we have been pretty generous with our talks of Ben Sherrington. And my opinion is I give a guy, I'm a fan of the Pirates. If he's my GM, then I'm a fan of him. until he gives me a reason to doubt. We just said before we started here that Neil Huntington made a lot of good trades.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that he did with maybe the back end of the bullpen where he had Joel Hanrahan for a minute and he flipped him and you ended up with Melanson right when Hanrahan was good and then Hanrahan and then Melanson and you flipped him and you had Rivera for a while, and then you also brought in Taylor Hearn who brought in other guys from Texas and there was like this other thing and it was like he made some really interesting moves that worked out. He made the McCutchen trade for Brian Reynolds and everybody's like, really? Brian Reynolds? This guy's unexciting. Well, now look what you have. And then you got all these different things, and I'm like, he did make some good trades.
Yeah.
But ultimately, depleted the minor league system, made the Archer deal, and also just like there was just some things that he did that we were like, he showed that you had it for 3 years, and then you started losing, and you were showing that you were not sustaining it by doing these things.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like you weren't able to keep it going.
That's when he started depleting the minor leagues to get guys to help us to make those runs, and
There were just things.
they were all rental players.
Yeah, and there were
And
all.
he was trading good prospects.
But he had some good signings that they were able to get guys that turned their careers around a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but there was also some good things that he did with like the back end of the bullpen and things like that were good.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't all lost.
No.
And it was just the idea that, and a lot of it too was how much of it was just money being strapped, and are we going to run into the same thing with Sherrington eventually when we say, really? This came down to not being able to sign this guy because of money, or the Liriano deal where we were like, yeah, we need to get rid of his money. So we trade him and 2 prospects to get a guy who's no good. You know what I mean? Like, how do you get rid of him and 2 guys? We could have just cut him. Well, we couldn't have cut him because then we would have had to pay for him.
Right.
In order to not pay for him, we had to send them Reese McGuire and the dude who just clicked with Cleveland, and they let him go. Whatever. Harold Ramirez. Whoever else was in those dealings. But the thing is we've been pretty generous. We think that the things that Sherrington is saying and doing could be good. The only problem I have right now, and the thing that starts raising questions is, first off, he doesn't let us know what he's thinking. So we don't know what year he has in mind.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, what he was able to do in Boston when he signed David Ross and Mike Napoli and those guys on those short 1-year deals, a couple of them 2-year, even like Shane Victorino, who everybody said was done.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He went out and said, well, we got Xander Bogaerts. The same year that they went and did that, they drafted Rafael Devers. And they had Blake Swihart, who everybody thought was going to be great, which is why I say you don't want to count on Henry Davis, but you think he's going to be great. And, all these things. And yet he said, but to bridge the gap, we're going to put a team together that's at least going to be fun to watch. And they ended up winning a World Series.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have Dustin Pedroia playing second right now. We do have Brian Reynolds, but we also don't have Jacoby Ellsbury right before he leaves. We also don't have, you know what I'm saying?
Big Poppy.
Yeah. So the idea is that they had some pieces that put them to World Series. We have pieces that could at least get us to be a better team. He could have signed a couple 1-year deals, maybe even a 2-year deal in there in a position that's maybe shortstop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could have done something like that to make it at least fun for Pirates fans to watch for a year. It's not going to set you back. Your payroll right now, I think Ethan's page says we're in the mid-30s. You could have pushed that up to 50 for 1 year, and it all would have came off the books next year.
Yeah.
And you would have been in the same place you are now, except instead of Yoshi, you got a first baseman that could do it. Instead of the Greg Allen, Anthony Alford thing. You could have put somebody in right field that actually makes some money. And it's a really good player on a 1-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
There's no bad 1-year deal. Sign somebody who maybe some people don't believe in right now, but you think is going to be good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm with you.
So, I don't know. I still think Andrew McCutchen on a 1-year deal. Give him $15 million. Who cares? You're not spending any money on anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That money's just going to go nowhere. It's going to go back in your
It
pocket.
still goes right back to me though with the Andrew McCutchen deal. I don't know if Pirate fans can handle it
I don't think that Ben Sherrington
because
is thinking anything about that.
I know, but I'm thinking about it, and I kind of don't want to see it happen because I don't want to hear the Pirate fans when we flip him
If you sign him to a 1-year deal,
and then trade him at the deadline.
but the point is, before you trade him at the deadline, if you sign him to a 1-year deal, it is what it is, guys.
Yeah.
Understand.
If we sign him to a 1-year deal,
Everybody should know what's coming.
It's about a half a year deal.
And that should make sense to everybody. Enjoy him for that 1 year.
Yep.
And you know what? He's going to click with somebody else, or else he's going to be bad. And then that's the only way he doesn't get traded. We don't want to see that either.
No.
I'm not sitting here saying that any move except for that is dumb. I just think it would make sense, and it would be a way. I think of it from their angle too. It would be. I mean, people would come to see him.
Mm-hmm.
He'd be worth your $15 million.
Yeah.
But not only that, but I'm just convinced that now that we've seen them add 3 guys to the 40-man roster that play outfield, that, maybe there's going to be more opportunities than we thought.
Yeah.
Maybe. Anyway, well over time. I know there was a lot to talk about. A lot of people are in some mix of being super upset about what just happened this week versus giving up on Sherrington and the Pirates because of what happened. Trust me, guys, trading away Jacob Stallings and letting guys like Chad Kuhl, Stephen Brault, and Colin Marengo are not a reason to give up on a guy. But to question what is expected of 2022 so far, yeah, I do. Even though the more I think about it, the more I say that letting these guys go is fine. Adding Quintana and Yoshi instead of guys that will actually help you win, that's what I don't understand. I think you could have been a lot more aggressive. I would have been happy with MLB trade rumors saying the Pirates have talked to Simeon. Heck yeah, we would have never had a shot for that. No. But it would have been nice to hear that the Pirates called him to see what he was looking for. It would have been nice to hear. Maybe Simeon's just the guy that's on the stinking page right now, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
The point is, how many of these pitchers did they call?
Some of the guys who got
did they call Max Scherzer?
Deal.
I want to see the Pirates are talking to people and not what's his name that's posted by Japan. I don't want to see that.
Yeah.
I want to see bona fide guys that at least they talk to them. It's absolutely zero interest on improving the major league roster next year.
We could have afforded a Stroman contract.
I don't know about that.
Or close to that.
I mean that's $23 million for 3 years. But yes, we could have talked to him. In the end, we would have been outbid, and that would have been okay with me.
Yeah.
But if you would have contacted Stroman and say, "I'll give you $23 million for this year," but pitcher, if you're a pitcher, I don't like those 1-year deals unless you are not proven. Like a guy like Quintana's got a lot to prove. That's the only kind of pitching wise is a lot harder than a position player. Because there's 5 spots on every team for a pitcher. There's only 1 spot for a right fielder. If I need a right fielder and I think it's going to be hard to find, Andrew McCutchen's going to end up with a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
And it probably won't be in Pittsburgh because apparently Sherrington didn't even check in. According to McCutchen's Twitter, they have not even communicated. And that, to me, is the problem.
Yeah.
Because they're showing absolute zero interest in giving Pirates fans something to watch. I'm not asking you to make the playoffs next year. But back-to-back 100-loss seasons is not fun.
Right.
You got to... 1-year deals are only for this year. You've got the money to spend. Just get us to watch something.
Yeah.
You're not committing to anything that hurts progression. With that said,
could you imagine?
Like
Could
you
you
said,
imagine Joey Gallo on a 1-year deal, playing right field for us?
yeah,
Hitting.
I absolutely could imagine it.
Hitting 6 balls into the Allegheny in 1 year.
I could imagine it. That would give us something to watch.
Absolutely.
Anyway, like I said, way over time. I know we wanted to talk about all this stuff. I know that we wanted to show because, like I said, you could call this podcast Sherrington fans, and we would be like, okay, I'm fine with that, right?
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. If you say that because we think that everything looks right. But that doesn't mean you don't have to. That doesn't mean you can't question them. That doesn't mean that you can't disagree with things. But we said last week we're Pirate fans, and that's the way it goes. So we're going to keep rooting for them regardless. It's not like I'm going to be like, oh, we're no longer the Bridge to Buctober podcast. We're going to talk about the Yankees now. We're going to talk about the Dodgers. To me, it's the safest bet, right?
Yeah.
Dodgers fans are freaking out right now. Dude, we don't have Seager anymore. You're going to be all right.
Yeah.
You're
Pretty
going to be
sure
all
your
right.
shortstop's just fine.
Yeah, you're going to be fine. Anyway, MLB lockout right now, guys. It's not fun. But we're going to push forward. We have things to talk about. Hopefully, maybe lockout things to talk about next week. Not going to be any Pirates moves.
Nope.
So, I don't know what's coming next week. To be honest, that's why I was a little bit okay going a little bit long this week. Got to talk about this stuff when it's fresh. But here we are. Next week, who knows? Christmas season. I know the weekend of Christmas we're not going to have a show.
No.
Unless
Too
something
much going on.
wild happens and I plug in something, I don't see it happening. We're not going to do it. So we will skip that week for sure. We'll hope to have something the next couple weeks for you guys. Hopefully there'll be something to talk about. If not,
Yeah.
we'll come up with something for sure.
Yeah.
You got anything else? Anything we talked about? You got anything to add here?
Not really. Sunday Night Football. Let's go Broncos.
Yeah, showing it up, showing your colors there. I will not show mine. So, yeah, wild. All right, college football playoffs coming. Hey, Kenny Pickett and Pitt winning the deal there. That's fun to watch. Other than that, yeah, I guess football's all you have to talk about, huh? So, it is what it is. But, hey, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for checking in. Twitter, Bridge #2, Buctober. Facebook, Instagram, Bridge to Buctober. All those little things. We're on YouTube, guys. So, check us out. Comment, subscribe. All those things. Appreciate you guys. Jake?
Let's go Bucs.
Let's go Bucks.